So I'm Richard Turner. I'm the Group CFO of the Jiggle Group, which is based in Lagos, Nigeria, and it's a business, privately owned business, that's involved in principally oil and gas, construction, fast-moving consumer goods, and technology. So quite a broad-based group based in Africa. Africa isn't, first of all, one country any more than the Middle East is. You've got to break it down into the individual components. So Nigeria, where I'm based at the moment, isn't as advanced as the Middle East, but it equally has huge opportunities in the consumer space, as it does here in the Middle East. So that's a similarity. I think one of the biggest differences is just simply the understanding. People don't understand Nigeria, and therefore they believe, if you like, what they read in the press. Once you go there and you do business there, you see that there is huge opportunities in the consumer space, in the marketing space, and in the country in general. Yes, there's risks everywhere. But in terms of differences, I think it's just one of understanding. There isn't a good understanding yet of the opportunities in Africa. I think in terms of doing business successfully there, what you've got to keep in mind is risk. You've got to watch your currency. We're not pegged to the dollar as we are here in the Middle East. We're linked to the dollar, but we're not pegged. So there is currency fluctuations. I think here in the Middle East, you have a very, very stable government, a very well-run and efficient government. To be fair, in the Middle East, in Africa, and particularly in Nigeria, we don't have an efficient government structure. But what you do have in Africa is an entrepreneurial spirit, and the people are in a sense making their own business despite the government. Here in the Middle East, the government is doing a tremendous job to facilitate that environment. So better partnership here, not such a good partnership in Africa. Do you know there's more areas of similarity than there are of differences? Being a CFO, as I was here, of two public companies for a number of years, here I had to manage my people, I had to lead the people, lead the team, I had to manage my cash, I had to manage my cost, I had to manage my stakeholders, I had to support my board, support my CEO. All of that is actually the same in Africa. I think the one difference primarily is just around risk. Because we don't have that government infrastructure and that developed framework, the volatility in Africa is greater. But the actual CFO role, the fundamentals of leading your team, looking for value, looking for growth, managing stakeholders, it's common, I would say, even the world over. As a CFO today, and this is something I've spoken about passionately actually in the Middle East and in Asia recently. Under the CFO today is ERM. What is ERM? It's enterprise risk management. It's not financial risk management. And often ERM is facilitated under the CFO. What does that mean? That means that the CFO is involved in managing, not reporting, managing, helping the business manage risk pervasively right across the enterprise. So the CFO anymore can't just be your gatekeeper, your prudent number cruncher. She or he has to be pervasive in the organization. And I hope personally to aspire to be a better CFO. I've no wish to be a CEO, because I believe as a CFO to excel is a huge challenge in itself.
Coming years?
That's a good question. 3 areas I'm working on, and I think we should all continue to work on. The first one is communication. Delivering a report, sending an Excel isn't communication. Communication is about engagement. It's about listening. It's about offering insight. It's about not delivering a report, but saying, what does the report say? What is the message? The first one is communication. Secondly, it's about emotional intelligence. We as accountants, when we're trained, we do financial accounting, management accounting, law, tax. We do nothing on emotional intelligence. And to be a CFO, you have to connect with your stakeholders in the business. And thirdly, you can't be a CFO today without leading your people. What does that mean? It means empowering them, truly empowering them, not saying it, but doing it. So they will make mistakes. What they then need is your support, not criticism. And leading that team, I think, gone are the days where the man at the top, the lady at the top, knew everything, was better at everything. Those days of leadership have gone. Leadership is about facilitating others in your team. So the third point is all about being a leader and actually being a humble leader. So communication, emotional intelligence, and being a leader to your team. You've got to have a person who is the conductor that brings all of those skills together. And the CEO's role, in a sense, is becoming even more complicated because increasingly in the large public companies, the CEO's role is as much about managing the board and the shareholders. That's a critical interface of managing the chairman, because you have to have that segregation, and the board. So leave that to the CEO to do. Personally, for me, I wouldn't want to be a CEO, A, because I'm not qualified, but B, once you're the CEO, you get involved in a whole lot of other areas that I'm not qualified to do. You would get involved in diversity cases. You'll get involved in complaints from customers. You'll get involved in a lot of areas that actually may not be that strategic, but are important. As a CFO, I would like to play my role in the strategic finance and leave the CEO to deal with some of those other matters that frankly I'm not qualified or interested to do. The CEO's role, in my humble opinion, is 2 levels now. Absolutely strategic, and then into the minutiae. And the minutiae the CEO's got to deal with, but I don't want to get involved in that. In the company I used to work with in the UK, which was BT PLC, the CFO became the CEO, a gentleman called Ian Livingston, took the share value on, expanded the company, did a very, very good job. And it doesn't end there, of course. The CEO then goes on to chairman, goes on to non-executive. I think the most important feature of a CEO moving from a CFO is bringing in those skills to which you actually then are not such an expert. Because you've got to learn marketing, you've got to learn production, you've got to learn HR. So a CEO's got to be very humble. I always remember, if I may say, Richard Branson, who I think is an entrepreneurial leader and a marvelous CEO. And he was asked once, he said, what's the secret of your success? What are you? You're this brilliant entrepreneur, you're a brilliant leader. What's your secret? How have you achieved this? And the message he gave, and the message I'll give to you, is what he said was this: I'm not an excellent business there. I'm not an entrepreneur. I just have the ability to recruit great people. And I think that's the key, particularly for a CEO to be successful. In our business, I work with the IT function. It reports into myself. 3 things are important. Number 1, understanding the difference between an investment and a cost. So IT is an investment. If you manage it badly, it becomes a cost. So recognize it's an investment, but it has to be the right one. Secondly, as a CFO, I'm demanding that my team have the best tools to do the job. You wouldn't expect someone to do a job without the right tools. If you have a plumber come to your house, he needs the tools to do the job. Finance is no different. They need the right tools to do the job. That's the systems, the software and the hardware. And thirdly, if I may say, in technology, I think it's very important on CFOs like myself and other colleagues to have people that create positive turbulence, young people like yourself that can come into the business, that understand technology, yearn to learn, understand this, and are impatient to get technology to work for us rather than we work for technology. And I think, how do we do that practically? We should recruit, train, empower young people to come into our businesses and say, make technology a better solution for us. Because going forward, there'll be greater investment in technology than people. So make it work for you rather than the other way around. Okay. And that's by young people who understand this much better than someone like myself. First one, many years ago, I worked for a very entrepreneurial, very large company called GlaxoSmithKline. And I remember one of the directors coming into my office unannounced one morning, and I was reading the Financial Times, and it was the jobs page. On the Thursday, it had all the jobs. And I was slightly embarrassed because he was my boss. He walked into my office and I'm looking at the jobs page. And my initial reaction was, he thinks I'm about to look for another job. And he said, Richard, don't worry. I expect you to be commercial for the company and commercial for yourself. And if we aren't keeping high potential young individuals like you empowered and aligned to our business, we deserve to lose you. So that gave me, if you like, the permission, empowerment to say, okay, it's okay to be commercial for yourself. And he demonstrated, I think, great leadership skills by not being threatened, by actually saying, recognizing that challenge. The other lesson I learned from another director at British Telecom, and this is a key one for us in finance. I worked all weekend on a big report ready for a meeting for him on Monday morning. And I delivered it to him because I wanted to make it right, I wanted to make it clear, 20 minutes before this big meeting. So the meeting was at 8 o'clock, I was in the office at 7:30, gave it to him. He lambasted me for that. And I thought, what's gone wrong? I've worked all weekend, I've delivered all this stuff, there's brilliant stuff in this report. He needed it Friday night to look at over the weekend, ready for Monday morning. And the mistake I made was trying to get perfection rather than delivery on time. And the lesson I learned was, give 95% of the solution, give 95% of the answer on time, rather than wait to try and do 99%, but deliver it just before the meeting. So in finance, as a CFO, the ability to launch and learn. Don't wait for perfection. Get on with it, deliver the report on time. It may not be perfect, it may not be completed. Market draft, but deliver on time, and that means giving your customer, internal customer, time to review it. Don't do it half an hour before a meeting and think you're a hero. He criticised me for working the weekend. I should have given it to him on Friday, 90%. I waited on Monday morning and gave him what I thought was 99. He couldn't look at it. It was too late. So all my work at the weekend was lost. That was a good lesson. Painful one too. The informal sessions, I'm sure my colleagues have said the same thing, are as valuable as the formal ones. The informal sessions is where you talk to other peers about what they're doing that makes their business successful, the tools they learn, the technology they're using. It also enables you to just get away from that office environment and the constant pressure of meetings and email, which you can't get away with completely here, but you can at least take a break, which then just enables you to be more relaxed and then have a more open mind to listen to the messages in the informal sessions and to your colleagues in the informal sessions. So very, very important. The one request I think for any organisation that runs this like yourselves is we've got to attract the right level of people. Sometimes we need finance managers together, sometimes we need financial controllers together, sometimes you need finance directors together, and sometimes you need CFOs together. They have different challenges at each of those areas. One is not more important than the other, but they are relevant to each other. So I think it's very important and a request to continue to have CFOs meet together so that they can discuss what's on that agenda, and don't dilute it into other areas, because then you'll lose the CFOs that come. So the balance you have now, I think, is right.